As an avid fan of the original Nioh, I had high hopes for its sequel, which acts as a prequel to the story. Nioh 2's foundation remains much in line with the original 2017 release, as its hardcore combat is tough to master, its worlds feel alive, and the story is a captivating journey set in the 1500s that throws in elements of building an empire, betrayal, and of course, fantasy. Nioh 2, for the most part, feels like a giant expansion to the original game, and at times it is hard to tell the two apart. A few subtle differences in gameplay helped bring it into a new light, but overall it looks the same, plays the same, and most of the mechanics from the original game are present. Why fix it if it ain't broke? With that being said, Nioh 2 brings some new and exciting gameplay elements to the table, especially in the form of yokai abilities, as the new soul system adds a new layer of mechanics to the combat, stats, and in turn character building. Pretty much everything has also seen a tweak, be it a subtle stat change or a whole new skill tree system. The game fixes issues players had in the original and reworked a lot of the balance. Right off the bat, Nioh 2 welcomes you to a brand new character creator, which saw me sitting for a good 30 minutes crafting the perfect companion. Unlike the original that saw you take the role of William, Nioh 2 allows for the freedom when it comes to who you will see throughout the entire game. Hair, skin, eyes, height, and even bust size. The character creator is quite detailed in what it offers for players, so be prepared to sit and craft the ideal hero. During the character creator, you can also modify your yokai form, which plays a crucial role in not only the game's story but combat too. You can choose your horn type and size, and what hair you want to see when you transform. Nioh 2 then drops you into a short tutorial mode where you can test out the weapon archetypes and choose two that you want to go with. This also determined which stats had a +1 to them in the beginning. Nioh 2 has added two new weapons to the mix. A switchglaive, which is a scythe that can be folded and unfolded in combat depending on your stance, and a pair of hatchets. For the most part, Nioh 2 plays out the same way as the original. The hardcore action RPG sees you explore 1500 Japan before the events of the first game and ties in well with the story we know and love. New lovable characters come and go, and the superb cinematics and voice acting helps bring the story and world to life as you are immersed in the Japanese lore of yokai and the war between various dynasties and lords. The game takes place across a handful of regions as you complete main and side missions throughout Japan. Main missions take you to gorgeous locations brought to life in a spectacular way, from fiery battlefields to sprawling Japanese temples. You can see Team Ninja put a great amount of effort into creating a living and breathing world throughout Nioh 2. Side missions, while they lack the scale of the main missions, often saw me returning to an already completed main mission location to hunt someone down, find an item, or clear out a wave of yokai. There are even a few reused areas from the first game which you visit throughout Nioh 2. Nioh 2 starts out quite tough. Combat is a challenge to master, especially with the new added yokai abilities. The game relies on a new parry system where you need to achieve a perfectly timed parry against a red glowing attack in order to stun that enemy. This is tough to learn at first and is even harder to time depending on the yokai form you have equipped. In general, there's been a greater emphasis put on these yokai abilities, which you need to use in order to succeed. Luckily, the whole system works quite well. Yokai enemies drop these soul cores which can be equipped into your yokai form. These souls have a limit depending on your level, and each of them acts as a stat boost or ability buff, while at the same time grants you a powerful attack similar to the yokai that you killed to get it. Early in the game, Enki drops a soul core that lets you jump into the air and throw a spear at your opponent. Later on, bosses even drop souls like Shuten Doji that let you spit out fire at enemies in front of you. The yokai abilities need anima in order to be used, which is a new bar that charges as you take damage and deal it. Some armor and items even grant you faster recharge of this bar too. Thus, adding another layer of stats to the game's system. Souls can then be merged together to level them up and buff them. Later in the game, you can equip up to 3 yokai souls, allowing you to choose a handful of them to go hand in hand with your character build. I decided to stick to the switchglaive and it proved to be a great choice. Its high stance swing had crazy range and a powerful hit. It also leveled into magic stat, which meant I could go into a sloth build that let me slow down enemies and spam them with magic balls. Some may call it a typical Nioh build, but it worked for me. I was then able to wear medium armor sets and buff my high stance attack with a yokai soul and improved my defense with another. The skill tree in Nioh 2 has had a visual overhaul while still containing some of the old abilities and some new ones too. Each weapon and ability type like Nioh and Ninjutsu have their own skill tree to master. The more you use a weapon and ability type, the more proficient you get, and then you earn skill points which you can use to unlock new attacks and most importantly buffs for a specific archetype. It allows you to truly master a weapon type apart from the usual leveling up using Amrita, and it also enhances the combat abilities by letting you equip specific skills to a button combination. The yokai abilities may be enhancement for your combat, but the enemies also have enhancements of their own called the Dark Realm. In the original game, these were limited to small puddles of dark energy on the floor that prevent stamina buildup. In Nioh 2, these yokai puddles are still a thing, but the realms have been added to the mix too that sees this dark energy now present in giant portions of each mission. When you enter these areas, the game screen changes, it becomes harder to see things around you, and your character's stats take a massive drop. Stamina refills at a much slower rate, and enemies deal more damage. These realms are headed up by a leader, which is a tougher enemy to slay. Often, these battles are harder to win as the odds are against you. However, once you slay them, the area then transforms back to normal, and your stats are returned back to the normal values too. Boxes can then be opened again, and all the yokai enemy in the realm instantly die. These areas pop up quite often, so building stats to help boost key recovery in them is a must. Or you can just leave it, but you'll have a really rough time trying to get through these areas. Nioh 2 also makes subtle changes to the game's overall stat system to encourage more stat investment. For example, the weight reduction stat roll that the original game had can no longer be found or reforged onto armor. This will drastically change the approach to endgame characters, as players will no longer be able to wear gear without investing in the correct stat lines. Anyone that played the original game will notice a few balance changes throughout the builds. When it comes to co-op, Nioh 2 unfortunately still suffers from the content being locked behind a player completing the mission before they can play it with you. This goes for both in-mission summons and the Great Expedition mode. It was a major drawback from the first game and is disappointing to see it still being implemented in the sequel. It just means you cannot play with a friend unless you or they have completed the mission. It would be nice to play the full game or New Game Plus with a friend from the start to finish without one of you needing to have completed the mission beforehand. One new feature in the game is Benevolent Graves. Apart from summoning revenants to fight them for gear, you can now put down a benevolent grave or summon another player's spirits in missions too by going to the blue swords. These spirits are not active players but rather AI built on their character and skills. They fight alongside you until you or they die. It is a great approach to co-op even if the AI sometimes lack the skill of an actual player. Nioh 2 does a lot to improve on the original game's mechanics. Not only does the game offer a deep RPG system to master, but the hardcore combat is as relentlessly fun as ever. Boss fights are epic beyond proportion as you need to focus on yokai burst parrying and mastering your moves while learning the opponent's movesets and abilities. It is everything you loved about the original game with some added fun in the form of yokai abilities and a reworked skill tree. The game is still limited in multiplayer, which makes no sense. However, once you have completed the game, you can help out a friend by doing an array of expedition missions, which are actually a load of fun. Nioh 2 is not your average hardcore RPG. Its combat has become a fast-paced flurry of attacks, parries, and abilities, which sets it apart from other games in the genre. It successfully improves on the original game's mechanics and merges some fun new ways to build your character that will see you venturing into New Game Plus with a beastly build. There's also a lot of content to enjoy here too, with the first playthrough lasting about 50 hours. But that's all our thoughts on Nioh 2. We had an amazing time playing through it and enjoying all the new things the game had to offer. What do you guys think? Are you looking to pick it up? Let us know down below. As always, if you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing, and until next time, farewell.
危なかったな。もう少しであやかしになっちまうとこだ。